Channel 7 Buffalo.
This is Eyewitness News Nightcast. Now, with Western New York's #1 newscast, here is Dan Hausle.
Topping Eyewitness News Nightcast, all talk but no contract. Buffalo teachers and the school board continue to meet with a state conciliator at City Hall at this hour. They arrived about noon today with hopes of hammering out a contract. With the conciliator's call for a news blackout, there's no way to tell just how the talks are going. School is set to start Tuesday, but the teachers say they want more money and smaller classes. They say they're ready to strike, but they're also willing to talk around the clock to work out a contract. Within the hour, 2 bags of food were seen being brought up to the meeting, so it does look unlikely that the talks will end soon. This one's happening right now. 9 people being treated at area hospitals following a boating accident on the Niagara River near Grand Island. Lawmen tell Eyewitness News that the 2 boats apparently collided. At least one of the injuries is reported to be serious. A Rochester woman luckily saw it coming as a train crashed into her house and knocked it off its foundation. Investigators say the Conrail train simply ran out of track as the engineer didn't get the order to stop backing up. Doreen Bellis heard the racket and ran from her house. She escaped injury, but as you can see, her house didn't. Officials say it will have to be demolished. About 150 people in central New York are back in their homes tonight after a train accident and a chemical leak forced their evacuation. The train derailed near Mechanicsville and spilled a highly flammable liquid. Emergency crews sealed the leaks and poured foam on the chemical, then allowed residents back into their homes. News of another chemical leak tonight, the 7th in a month in what's now being known as the Chemical Valley in West Virginia. Officials say a rotten-smelling toxic chemical leaked from a Nitro, West Virginia plant, sending 6 people to the hospital. The area near the plant was cordoned off. No evacuations were ordered. Federal investigators have spent 2 days combing the ground at the scene of Friday's Midwest Express Airlines crash. Today, they found 6 new pieces of an engine. But officials still can't say whether those parts belong to the engines aboard the ill-fated DC-9. Meanwhile, the grim task of identifying victims continues. 18 of the 31 bodies have been positively identified. California's alleged Nightstalker has become so notorious it may be tough to get him a fair trial. That comes from not only the defense attorneys for 25-year-old Richard Ramirez, but even from his prosecutors. Ramirez lawyers say they're not sure whether they'll ask to move the trial because it may be just as difficult to find a neutral jury anywhere in the country. The crime was bizarre, and so is the final chapter of a murder story. 7 years ago, Theodore Streleski was murdered his math teacher for belittling his 19-year effort to obtain a doctorate degree. Today, upon his release from prison, he said he couldn't rule out that he might murder again.
He was a math student who became a murderer. And today, as he got out of prison, Theodore Streleski had become a media event. During 7 years behind bars, Streleski became one of California's most controversial prisoners. He went to prison with no apologies. He left the same way.
I have murdered a professor at Stanford. I have submitted it to a judge and a jury. I say Stanford treats students criminally. If I express remorse, I cut the ground out from under that argument. Okay, I would be not only a murderer, but a dirty, lying dog. I am a murderer. I'm not a dirty, lying dog.
Streleski spent 19 years at Stanford trying to get a PhD in mathematics. He blamed his failure on the faculty, and he killed a popular teacher with a sledgehammer. Later, in prison, Streleski claimed his act was logical, and logic dictated he might do it again.
A person who breaks the law in this country, goes to trial and is tried by a jury of his peers, and he's sentenced, period. It doesn't involve promising to be a good boy.
And as he left prison today, he was still offering no guarantees, except that he'd take the hint of Stanford police.
If he comes to Stanford, we intend to arrest him for trespass.
Streleski may be out of prison, but for now anyway, he's not going far. He'll be busy suing the California prison system for $2 million. During his parole hearings, the state questioned his sanity. Says Streleski, that's defamation of character. Judd Rose, ABC News, Vacaville, California.
These stories still ahead on Nightcast. A taxing weekend for the House Ways and Means Committee. And a little later, the games people play.
The winning numbers picked Sunday in New York's daily number lottery game, 0, 3, 5, and 7, 2, 2, 9.
It was a taxing weekend talking taxes. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee huddled with administration officials at a country retreat near Washington. Now that the huddle is over, both sides are predicting forward movement for tax reform.
Where else for congressmen to go to consider the nation's tax burden but on a retreat at a secluded, posh conference center outside Washington? A retreat paid for by taxpayers. 33 members of the committee that will write the House tax reform bill and Treasury Secretary Jim Baker spent the weekend there. Baker at the conference reportedly told committee members the president would not compromise on some things. The deductibility of home mortgage interest for one, and a top rate on personal taxes of 35% for another. But that leaves a great deal to be negotiated.
There's going to have to be some patience. That flexibility and bipartisanship are going to be the key elements in what I think is our ability to put together a worthwhile reform measure.
We're still of the view that there's at the very least, a fair shot of getting that done this year.
But that optimism that a tax bill can be passed is not widely shared. On return from recess this past week, the Speaker said the House would consider a bill, but overall, he expressed doubt.
I found no sentiment among the business people of America, no sentiment among the people at home.
And today, the Majority Leader of the Senate expressed doubt.
Not a single person who really spends all their time looking at this feel it's going to pass this year.
Well, not every single person. The president has been on the speaking tour for tax reform, and he'll keep trying to build sentiment for it. But if the sentiment is there, most in Congress say they don't see it yet. Charles Gibson, ABC News, Washington.
President Reagan returned to the White House from his weekend at Camp David today. The president is reportedly considering limited sanctions against South Africa. Reagan refused to answer questions, but congressional sources say Reagan will impose a ban on the sale of South African gold Krugerrands tomorrow. Other economic sanctions include blocking bank loans and stopping the sales of computers. From overseas, reports of an apparent coup in Thailand. The takeover is by a group of military commanders identifying themselves as the Revolutionary Party. They reportedly took over radio stations in Bangkok and announced that they overthrew the government. The prime minister is out of the country. Pope John Paul is back in his home country, Italy, tonight after delivering his most blistering attack ever on abortion. The pontiff lashed out during a short visit to Liechtenstein. John Paul calling abortion a repulsive crime, and he vowed the church will never relax its opposition to abortion or to divorce or extramarital sex. Still ahead on Eyewitness Sports, Lendl loses that loser label, and the Bills drop the ball in the big season opener. And now here's Bob Koshinski with Eyewitness Sports. And while the Bills were a loser today, they're certainly in some good company with the two Super Bowl contenders last year, both losing as well today.
That's right. At least they're in second place in the conference. So
great.
Not too bad. The Bills look like an improved team against the Chargers today. The defense tightened up after San Diego's first possession, and the offense moved the ball well with Vince Ferragamo at the helm. But costly penalties and mental mistakes were still a part of the game plan, and as a result, the Chargers sneaked out of town with a 14-9 win. A crowd of 67,597 showed up on a hot, muggy day at Rich Stadium. Not bad considering last year's season. And the Chargers looked like they were going to run the Bills right out of the stadium on their first possession. Curtis Adams will take it in to cap off a 9-play, 70-yard drive. San Diego led 7-0. But on the Bills' second possession, Vince the Prince hits Jerry Butler with a 41-yard pass, the first of several bombs that would be completed. The drive falters, however, and Scott Norwood kicks a 27-yard field goal. The Bills trailed 7-3. In the second quarter, Ferragamo goes long to Butler again, and this time Danny Walters is called for interference. The Bills had the ball on the 17. But again, they failed to punch it in, and Norwood hits a 34-yard three-pointer for a 7-6 Bills deficit. With 9:18 left in the half, Fouts finds Eric Sievers open over the middle, and Don Wilson tries a futile arm tackle, allowing Seaver to make it all the way in for the score. Chargers led 14-6. Ferragamo goes upstairs again to Butler, and the speedy receiver makes no question about his return, hauling it in for a 48-yard completion. But with the ball on the 7, the best Buffalo can do is another field goal by Norwood. The half ended with the Chargers leading 14-9. No scoring in the third, and when Buffalo threatened in the fourth, Eason Ramsden fumbled the ball on the 12 after a Ferragamo pass, ending yet another opportunity. Like I said, the Bills moved the ball today. Ferragamo got them out of a hole when he hit Mitchell Brookins for 46 yards, but again, they could not put points on the board.
Then, with a little over 3 minutes left, the Bills were on the move again. A touchdown would win it, but Ferragamo was intercepted by Mike Green to stymie what looked like their last chance of the game. But the defense held, and one last chance for the offense, but the receiver's inability to get out of bounds, especially on this pass to Richardson, caused time to run out with the ball on the Chargers' 24-yard line. So despite outperforming San Diego in almost every category, the Bills were on the short end of a 14-9 score, but the players had plenty to be optimistic about.
I'm so-so. I would like to do a lot better, and of course, anytime I exert a great amount of effort, I like to win. I like to win. I just love to win, and that only makes me go to work harder tomorrow.
I think if the fact that, you know, we take the right approach mentally and come with the right approach, hey, we are getting better. We're better this game than we played all preseason. And defense showed signs of coming together late in the game and stopping them when you had to stop them. That's how you win ball games. And that was real good to see, good sign.
I really feel that you know, we did a good job. We went out, we didn't let down, we kept pressure on them, we stayed on them, and we just came out on the short end. We can't let that happen too much.
Yeah, the key to their defense is that front three, and they put good pressure on the quarterback all day, and then they moved some people around, and like I said, we just missed on a lot of plays. We didn't execute poorly, we just didn't, we were about 90%, not 100% like we need to be.
So the Bills start out 0-1, but the first victory should come much quicker than last season. And if they can stop beating themselves, next week they take on the Jets. The Bills may even be the favorites. Elsewhere around the NFL, the two Super Bowl clubs ran into two of last year's patsies, only to become upset victims. In Houston, the Oilers were leading the Dolphins 19-16 with 9 minutes left in the game. Don Strock had to come in to replace an ineffective Dan Marino. He throws 66 yards to Mark Duper. Super Duper runs it all the way in for a touchdown. Miami led 23-19. Houston, not to be denied, former Heisman Trophy winner and USFL fugitive Mike Rozier puts it in. With 25 seconds left in that game, the Oilers went on to win it 26-23. In Green Bay, New England found itself all alone in first place in the AFC East after dropping the Packers 26-20. Tony Collins scoring from the 11 for a 7-0 lead, and Packer coach Forrest Gregg tried to rally his troops. But the Pats defense added 2 more points when Don Blackman sacked Lynn Dickey in the end zone. New England held on for the victory. In Los Angeles, New York Jets quarterback Ken O'Brien couldn't have had a worse day. Not only was he sacked 10 times by the rumbling Raiders, but he was also intercepted twice. This interception, a costly one, as Raiders reserve safety Stacey Torin returns it 76 yards for the Raiders' final score. And the Jets go on to a 31-0 shutout. In the NFC, the Super Bowl champ 49ers thought they would have an easy time with the lowly Minnesota Vikings. Roger Craig giving them an early 7-0 lead with that run. But under Bud Grant, the Vikes fought back and took the lead. This last-ditch pass from Montana with 12 seconds remaining was picked off by former Bill Rufus Best. The Vikes knock off the champs 28-21. At the Meadowlands in New Jersey, the Giants took an early 7-0 lead when quarterback Phil Simms hits Lionel Manuel with a 23-yard scoring strike. They then add another touchdown on their next possession when Smokin' Joe Morris from Syracuse runs it in from the 12-yard line. And then the rains came, cooling off the fans, but the Giants' defense cooled off Philadelphia's offense as well. They go on to a 21-0 shutout. And one of the most exciting finishes today, the Cleveland Browns hosted St. Louis. Neil Lomax hit Earl Farrell with a 30-yard pass. The elusive back takes it down to the Browns' 4-yard line. From there, O.J. Anderson takes it the rest of the way, fighting his final 2 yards for the score. But the Browns took the lead in the final minute. The Cardinals tied it. It goes into sudden death. And Neil O'Donohue will kick a 35-yard field goal to win it 27-24. Looking at the scoreboard in the NFL, Houston, New England, and the Raiders victors. Minnesota, the Giants, and St. Louis over Cleveland. Moving on, Detroit nips Atlanta. Pittsburgh clobbers Indianapolis. KC over New Orleans 47-27. Seattle 4-point winners over Cincinnati. Maybe a surprise there. And it was Chicago over Tampa Bay. And the Rams knock off Denver 20-16. It's been a year of upsets at the U.S. Open. Today, Yvonne Lendl sees an opportunity to shake off his loser's label. He beat top-seeded John McEnroe in straight sets.
Yvonne Lendl got off to a rough start against the defending champion. John McEnroe ran off 3 straight games and pushed Lendl to set point at 5-3. Then the Mac attack turned into the woe of McEnroe. Lendl hammered back McEnroe's serve, forcing a tiebreaker. Ripping backhands and forehands cross-court, the second-seeded Czech took the tiebreaker 7-1. After that, it was all Lendl. He seemed to hit winners at will. McEnroe just couldn't keep up the pace, dropping the second set 6-3. In the third, Lendl's cross-court forehands kept Johnny Mac on the run. Lendl put away the match, claiming the final set 6-4 for his first U.S. Open title. This is Tom McDonald reporting.
Player-manager Pete Rose penciled himself into the lineup at the last minute today and collected a pair of singles. That, of course, tied him with Ty Cobb for the all-time hit record. Rose singled in the first inning, then drove this shot to right field to raise his career hit total to 4,191. The record-tying hit came against the Cubs' Reggie Patterson, and the crowd gave Rose a rousing standing ovation. The game, well, it was suspended due to darkness after 9 innings, and the score tied at 5. So now Rose returns home to collect the record breaker. Looking at the scores in the National League, the Mets over L.A. 4-3, Atlanta over St. Louis 7-3. That tightens up the race. Philly over San Diego. Montreal knocks off San Francisco in 10 innings. Over in the American League, the Yankees creep within a half a game of Toronto with a 9-6 victor over Oakland. Toronto over Minnesota 10-9. The Yanks are still a game and a half in that race. And Seattle over Detroit 6-2. It was Boston over Cleveland, California over Baltimore, KC down Milwaukee 13-11, and the White Sox nip Texas 7-6. The daily double at Fort Erie was a 7-7 combination, returning $36.80. So, Dan, the Bills, not stinko, it wasn't like last year. People at the stadium felt they really had something to look forward to next week. So
they're still hopeful out at the stadium?
I thought the fans were very optimistic about today's performance. A few bad mistakes, but you're not going to come back all at once.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bob. Up next, AccuWeather sings a sour forecast about rainy days and Mondays, and meeting the Mary Jane girls. And now here's Bill Sweet with the AccuWeather forecast. Bill, did any of those thunder showers show up anywhere?
They've showed up all around Western New York. Some people saw them, some people did not. And by tomorrow morning, you should see something. At least you'll hear something as the thunder showers are coming up the lake into the Western New York area. We don't have a giant group of them all together. They're scattered throughout. And that'll be the story tonight into tomorrow. By tomorrow night, they'll begin to abate. They'll begin to go away. By the time we get to Tuesday, things are going to be a lot different, a lot better, just like a preview to fall, I think. So one more day of the stickies. They're slowly going away. A lot nicer out here tonight than it was last night. It was like a steam bath out here last night. Much, much better tonight. The high today, we had an 84-degree reading, 69 for the low. The record in 1960, an 89-degree, 42, the record low in 1951. With 0.22 of an inch of rain at Buffalo International, some people out there throughout Western New York had over an inch of rain. But where they're kept, they know exactly the amounts. That's right at Buffalo International, 0.22 of an inch. Now, most of this is ground clutter around the city, but off over the lake, some rather aggressive thunder showers. And to the south of the border there, where you see the green in there, those are embedded, very aggressive, lots of rain and lightning in those. So over the night, most people throughout our area, our viewing area, can expect a little bit of something probably before it goes out. I expect most people to see a little bit of something. Let's check and see what we have as far as radar nationally goes. The south having the great amount. We have this particular center of the low coming in our area by tomorrow, and that will finally move out and give us some nice days later on in the week. I'll show you why here. High pressure kicking up the steamy southerly winds, being stopped by that frontal system. It's kind of not stalling out, but hanging right on top of us. And that particular frontal system will slowly move as the jet stream moves it along. And just above that, it's nice and cool. Below it, it's very, very sticky. We're right dead center. It will slowly move south, and that will give us some of the cooler region of air by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Things look mighty nice once we get through Monday. Indeed, they do. Now, come drive time tomorrow morning, right on top of us, a lot of cloud cover and a probability of showers throughout the Western New York area. When you're driving into work, be careful tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, most of the nation, the southern half almost into the 90s and 80s, will be into the 70s tomorrow. At Buffalo International, it looks like 71 degrees this very hour, 87%. The humidity reading, 29.99. The barometer is even. The winds 6 miles an hour out of the south with a little gust of 11. Around Western New York, let's check some of the temps out there. You'll see mostly in the 60s, a few of them up into the 70s. Bradford's kind of cool there at 66, isn't it? Salamanca has a 72. Alfred, a 70-degree reading. The exclusive AccuWeather forecast overnight, warm and humid. A couple thunderstorms may come your way, indeed. Low of 65. Tomorrow, not as warm. A few showers and thunderstorms. Heavy downpours at times. Possible a high of 74. Much cooler tomorrow. Down to 60 tomorrow night with a few showers lingering around the Western New York area. Let's check the winds out of the south, mainly today. They're switching, coming around to the northeast tonight and tomorrow. 6 to 12, 6 to 12 tomorrow all day. 6:48 and 7:36 are the sun times, and there are nice warm lakes. The long range really does get better. On Tuesday, some showers, but a lot of sunshine will be creeping in also. High of 72. On Wednesday, changeable skies, plenty of sunshine creeping in. High of 70, up to 70 if we're lucky. On Thursday, a cooling trend, partly to mostly sunny, and isn't that very good news? All in all, the weather beat will be a little bit sticky, a little bit rainy. That'll go away by tomorrow night in all probability. Things are looking better. Back inside to you. Dan?
Bill, I noticed you're not wearing a tie. Is that because you couldn't find one to go with that jacket there?
No. No, I couldn't, and it's sticky out here. It's sticky.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay. Names making Eyewitness News Nightcast include Mario Cuomo. Appearing on Meet the Press, New York's Democratic governor said Americans think Ronald Reagan is wonderful, a wonderful human being. Cuomo admitted the Republican president is even popular in his own house. But he adds Americans are far more enthusiastic about his personality than they are about his policies. 33-year-old Gerald Carate is pretty enthusiastic about his new job. The Buffalo native was sworn in this week as secretary to the governor. I also imagine he's pretty enthusiastic about his salary, $85,000 a year. And just about everyone's enthusiastic about little Jeffery Reichel. The severely brain-damaged boy was recently featured in an Eyewitness News medical series on advancements in the treatment of his disorder. Today, friends and neighbors held a fundraiser in Jeffrey's honor at St. Matthew's Church in North Tonawanda. And here are 5 enthusiastic Miss America contestants. The girls posed for pictures today during a photo session in Atlantic City. By the way, down in front there in the middle is Fredonia's own Jill Privateer, Miss New York. Our final name in the news tonight is the Mary Jane Girls. Several of them were met with the family and friends of Val Young, an up-and-coming recording artist who just completed recording her first album in Buffalo. Miss Young recorded her album at The Joint, a recording studio owned by Buffalo's own Rick James. Still ahead, the games people play. Finally tonight, some people learn morality from their church, some from their parents, and some never seem to learn at all. Well, now there's a new way to learn morality in a game called A Question of Scrupples. Mike Connors explains the rules.
You and your mate expect loyalty and honesty from one another. One night out of town, you have a fling. Do tell.
They call it A Question of Scrupples. It's a game, but no trivial matter. Players pose moral dilemmas to each other. The object? To figure out how an opponent might respond. There are no right answers, only troublesome questions, 240 in all. Like Trivial Pursuit, Scrupples originated in Canada, the brainchild of university teacher Henry Makow. A good moral dilemma, he says,
is where you're not sure what is right. That's what makes a good moral dilemma. Or what you think or suspect ought to be done comes in conflict with what is in your obvious self-interest.
The game arrived in the U.S. in April, and so far, demand is outstripping supply. One reason for its popularity?
All of us are a little bit masochistic, sadomasochistic. We play with others, and we like to rub that in, have our own noses rubbed in that.
The questions are sometimes a bit personal.
You're really attracted to someone you meet at a party. Later the same evening, the special person suggests spending the night together. Do you agree?
No. Frankly, people who would consider this a fun game are not people that I would want to play with.
I think it's great for an icebreaker or for people that you know well.
I got kind of depressed playing it.
So, depending on what you want, Scrupples may be it.
Because I am a woman of high morals, and that, above all else, is what I stand by.
After all, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Michael Connor, ABC News, New York.
I don't know if I'd want to play that one.
No, you shouldn't play that one.
Oh, I should. It sounds like an updated version of Truth or Dare or something like that, which I never played either, so...
Truth or Dare?
I've heard rumors about it. Okay. How about the movie tonight?
Okay, let's get out of that one if we can. The Deadly Trap. That's on tonight. Starring Faye Dunaway, Barbara Perkins, and Frank Langella. Really, you'll like it.
Thanks for joining us.